Um, we're going to go ahead and start. We're going to go ahead and start our presentation. I did want to let you know that we are recording this so that it can be distributed to folks afterwards. My name is Jeff Kushkowski. I wear a bunch of hats at the library. I'm an instruction librarian. I'm the subject specialist for business and economics, and I'm also, actually what it means is that I attend lots of meetings. So basically myself and Heather, who's our co-host for the afternoon, we're going to give you a walkthrough of library resources that are useful for graduate students. And it's going to be a combination of things. It's going to be a combination of basically a short tour of the library website, so you have some idea of access some site, and then we're going to talk a little bit about some of the resources that we have, how to track citations. That's something. So a couple of things like that. We'll talk about how to find subject-specific resources. Talk about how to find a librarian. Each of you in your departments have librarians that you can contact and get a hold of if you have questions, or hey, I'm looking for articles on a particular topic and I'm not finding them. Where do I go? We can point you in the direction of your librarian. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is the library website, and you can get to it by going to live.iastate.edu. From the university homepage, if you click under departments, it shows up there. This is what the page looks like. One of the things that we have added during COVID is we have basically a counter system that gives us the ability to tell you whether or not there's seating in the building. And we've got about 3,000 seats. So this will tell you if it's green, it will say there's available. Yellow is maybe you'll find a spot, and red means that you won't find a spot. Just to give you an idea of what the traffic is looking like in the library. The first thing that we want to talk about this afternoon actually is, I'm going to actually start with how to find your librarian. And down here on the page, under access and support, there's a link that says find your librarian. And when you click that, it gives you a list of all of our librarians who cover every subject you can think of. And we're subject experts who can help you with your research and your course needs. If you're a TA and you're trying to figure out an assignment for a class, or you are a research assistant and your major professor says, hey, go find me a lit review on this topic, and you don't know where to go, you can find your links here. There are phone numbers and emails for each person, and there is the option also to click on a link to make an appointment with people. And when you do that, it brings up a calendar. Ideally, it brings up a calendar. I'll see if this works. Where you can make an appointment. Usually what I tell people when they're contacting me is, and particularly when they get to us through some of our research guides, is to just click on the name and send the person an email. That's generally the fastest way to get things. Doesn't look like this is going to go back. Right, so back to this page. All of our librarians are friendly, none of us bite. And we really do have, we really are looking out for wanting to ensure that students are as successful as they can be with whatever they're doing, whether it's a class or working on a thesis or doing research. So to start our tour of the library things, we're going to focus on this box up here that says Quick Search. And Quick Search is the kind of gateway to what the ISU library owns. So if you're looking for a book that we own, or you're looking for trying to find out whether or not we own the journal, If you have a DVD player and you want to go out and find one of our movies that's down in the basement without going and rummaging through 6,000 titles, you can go and put in a title and see if we have it. Quick search is great for finding things that the ISU library owns. But it's not so great for looking for articles. And one of the things that happens, if you click on the link that says advanced search, it brings up an advanced search button. And up here on the top right-hand corner where it says search scope, library collections, and articles, it says articles there because Quick Search is connected to some of our article index databases, but not all of them. So it's missing a lot of the resources. It's missing a lot of the databases that we would normally suggest you go to, especially in business. So you're better off. There are other ways to find articles, and we'll show you what those are. You can click on the link that says library collections, and that will limit your search to things in the library. So we're going to go and using advanced search. And then here you can select material type, and then your publication and other things. So once you've finished your search, one of the things that you can do, I see you can do, and you'll see this in some of the other databases that we displayed this afternoon, is that you have the option once your search is complete to change the way that your results are displayed. The default sort is by relevance, and the relevance is based on an algorithm that our database or that our provider lists for us. You can change that link so that you have date newest. So I'm looking for innovation articles and innovation books, and I really want the newest stuff. I don't care about things that are less than 5 years old. Your other option is you can change the creation date here. The other thing that you can do is the ISU library collections for our book materials include physical books, but increasingly they also include ebooks. So if you want only the online resources, you can select that. If you only want the physical items, you can select things like that. You can also go down and refine things like the topics. So if you said, oh yeah, innovation, I'm looking for innovation, but I'm really looking for stuff about technology management, you can link that way and it will redo your search and then give you the list. If you go in and make changes to the search after you've done it, one of the things that it will do is if you have set filters over here on the right-hand side, it's going to keep those filters as you go through and refine your search again. So you won't need to go in and redo the date sort or other kinds of things. Okay, so I guess one of the things when I talk about ebooks, one of the features of our ebook collections is that in a lot of cases you need to be actually signed in order to use them. And this is something that actually, if you click on the link that says My Library Card, what will happen is it's going to ask you to sign in with your NetID through Okta. And as it turns out, I didn't sign in before I did this. So, so what it's going to do is now you can see everything that I've checked out, which is fine. So through that My Library Card thing and logging in, what it does is it gives you access to a list of the things that you've asked for, or a list of the items that you have checked out. But it also gives you direct access to things like the ebook collections. So that if you find an ebook in here and you want to read it, you can just click on it. It's going to connect you directly instead of asking you to sign in otherwise. So aside from our collections, and we have lots of collections, we've got 3 million books, and a couple tens of thousands of journals available. We also have lots of space in the library. The library's got about 340,000 square feet of space. And one of the things that the library is known for, or that students really like about the library, is that they're able to come through and study. So we have group study rooms available. We have individual study rooms available. We have quiet study spaces up in the periodical room. So there's a whole range of spaces that you can use as a library user that you can come in and kind of customize for your own needs. But one of the things I mentioned, group study spaces. If we go up here to the spaces and computer section, there is a link here to reserve a library space. Now I think it's not. I don't think it's going to let me actually do this because I'm a student. But I'm going to try. One of the things that we've done, one of the things that has happened this fall that is brand new, brand spanking new, is we have a family-friendly study room downstairs that we just opened 2-3 weeks ago. That is reservable. So if you are a student that has children and you want to bring them to the library and have them experience the library while you're studying, we've got a space. We have a family-friendly study space, and from that family-friendly study space blister, there are directions to. We have accessible restrooms with changing tables. We have a lactation room. And we have a fairly large collection of children's books. So if you're worried about your children coming to the library and not having something to do, the room is outfitted with toys and places for little kids to sit. And like I said, we have a pretty large collection of children's books that they can use. And if all else fails, find a printer, pull out a piece of paper, and give them a pencil and ask them to draw a picture. So your options for reserving spaces, you can reserve a group study room, and we have, I can't remember the number of study rooms, but there are a bunch. There's a whole wall of study rooms along the front part of the building in the new section that opened last year. There are study rooms. There are a bunch. So you can reserve a study room, and you can actually reserve for up to 2 hours a day. And you can reserve for multiple weeks at a time, but not for a whole semester. So I think the most you can do is 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So if you have, for example, if you're a TA for a class and you want to hold a review session for your students, you can reserve a study room and reserve that space for a specific time so that they can come in and do things every week. Your other option, like I mentioned, the family-friendly study room is an option. The other thing is we do have research studies for grad students that are available. I think that there is, last I knew, or say generally speaking, there's a waiting list for the research study rooms. But you can click on the link here and it will tell you it'll ask you, you can send in a link and request a application or pick one up at the main desk. And we'll get you access to that. I'm going to try doing the reserved study room. Here we are. This is what it looks like. So this will tell you, here are the rooms that are available. If it's available, it's going to be blue. And you would, since you're logged in through Okta, it's going to recognize who you are. You can click and reserve a space. And we have a bunch of rooms, about 16 of them. And I'm not going to reserve a room because then I'll have to go back and unreserve them. All right. Group study spaces, I talked about signing in with your library card. One of the things that's likely to happen to you as you're a graduate student as you're going and looking for articles or books or whatever, is at some point you're going to run into something that the library doesn't know. And never fear, because we have something called interlibrary loan, where we will actually borrow things for you from other libraries. So under access and support here on this bottom, in this sort of fourth quadrant, lower right quadrant, you click on the link that says interlibrary loan. This tells you how things work. Basically, articles and chapters are delivered by email. Books are sent to either Park Library or VetMed. So if you happen to be a VetMed student, you don't have to worry about walking all the way up here to get the book. We'll actually deliver it to you down at VetMed. But in terms of the way that interlibrary loan works, I'm going to go ahead and log in. Again, you log in with your net ID. If you're using interlibrary loan for the first time, one of the things that will happen is that the first time you log into the interlibrary loan system, it's going to ask you for some information. So it's going to ask you for your address and your phone number, your email address. I think it asks whether you're faculty or staff or student. One of the reasons that we're doing this is we want to get information from you so that we can best deliver materials to you. So we want your email address so that if we've got an article or a book chapter that we need to send you, you're going to send us the information. It's going to show up right away. It's going to show up when it comes back. When the item comes to the library for us to deliver to you, we're not going to have to call you up or email you and figure out how to get things. During COVID, one of the things that we did with interlibrary loan and our document delivery service was we actually delivered books. We actually sent books out. So because the library was closed for a number of months, what ended up happening was people that requested books, we actually sent stuff. So having that contact information in there is important. On the left-hand side of this link, it gives you an idea of kinds of things that we will request. So you can request an article, a book chapter, a conference, standards, all kinds of things. This is what the article request looks like. And in a lot of cases, and many times you're not going to need to actually go to the form, go to the interlibrary loan form in order to do this. We're going to show you something called browsing later on during the presentation today. And with browsing, browsing is a service that provides access to journal articles. If it turns out in browsing that we don't have access to the article you want, click on a link. It will log you into interlibrary loan page. You'll get a page like this, but what browsing will do is it will fill in the information about the article that you want. And all you need to do is click the button down at the bottom to submit request. So one of the questions that you probably have at this point is, well, so, okay, I've found something that I need that the library doesn't have. How long is it going to take for this stuff to show up? You know, I have a deadline. My major professor wants things by the end of the week. What am I going to do? The good news about journal articles is we have about a 24-hour turnaround. For the most part, most things usually show up. Our record is 12 minutes, but I wouldn't give you that as a standard for getting an article requested. The way that things work is once your article article requests, like I said, are about a day to 2 days. Book requests, things that actually have to be physically sent to the library, take between 3 and 4 days because of having to ship things. And the other great news for you as grad students is there's no cost for this. So we can get you pretty much anything you need through interlibrary loan if it's something that we don't own. And in the years and years that I've worked here, I've only had one item actually returned, one item I've requested returned because they weren't able to deliver it. It was Korean Library Science Journal article, and just no one had it, and they couldn't get it from Korea, they couldn't get it from any place, so they sent back and said, sorry, we can't do this for you. Something else that you need to know about the library, I mentioned to you about the Find Your Librarian piece. But we also have a service, we also have a live chat service, which if it is working, it will say live chat down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the library homepage. If we click on this link, it's actually going to start a chat with a live person. We don't use robots. We don't use AI to do our things. We actually have real people behind them, real people on the other side of your chat box. We generally have chat from between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday. Otherwise, if we're not here and having chat, you have the option of sending us an email, and we'll generally get back to you with the email questions the next day. The chat service is staffed by our librarians on a rotating basis, so you may not get the person, or let's say if you're asking a chemistry question, you may not get the chemistry librarian on the end. The chemistry librarian may not be the person on the chat service when you send or when you ask your question. But what we can do is we can refer you to people. We do our best to answer the questions that we can. A lot of times, what I have found in terms of questions that I've been getting recently are, of course, the beginning of the semester questions like how long is the library open? But generally speaking, I get questions like, I'm not able to find this journal article. Where is it? Where can I find this article? And those are questions that any of us pretty much can answer regardless of what our underlying specialty is. But what we will do is we will refer you to the librarian in your area if it turns out that it's a question that we can't answer. We're not going to fumble around and keep hanging there for a while. And I'm not going to start a chat. They're busy enough actually at this point. Something else that I wanted to mention really quickly, when we went to the advanced search link in quick search, one of the options was searching special collections. Our special collections and archives folks have all of their material is available in all of their material. Access to the records for their material is available in quick search. But I wanted to show you another way that you can get access to materials from special collections. So if you go to the link here that says notable collections and you click on special collections and archives, they have a service called Cardinal, which it gives you basically a link to all of their all of the records that we have. Special Collections and Archives has a mix of university records. So, for example, the food science organizational records, faculty records, and then we have records from, for example, the American Statistical Association and Pioneer Hybrid, and we have a fantastic collection of Civil War diaries from soldiers from Iowa that served in the armed forces during the Civil War. We also have, let's see, if anyone is interested in the seat catalogs, anybody that's out there in agronomy, we have a collection of historic seat catalogs that are actually, they have been digitized. And we're able to get seat catalogs from the 1890s or 1870s forward. So, all right. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about article indexes and databases. And article indexes and databases are available here under this grade, the sort of pan tab. we've got 300 plus databases on every topic you can imagine. And one of your questions might be, well, how do I find these things? And one of the answer to that, if you're looking just at this list, we do have no classified by topic. So you can go and take a look at the articles by topic. Heather, when she takes over in a little bit, is going to show you some other ways that we've got our article indexes and databases classified. But what I wanted to talk to you about briefly right now is how you can track citations and actually find articles on topics, find articles on a topic that are relevant for your research. And we're going to go and we're going to use a database called Web of Science. And actually, instead of using this Web of Science core collection, because that is the citation index and that excludes, that's the version of Web of Science that that is the version of Web of Science that includes citation index and not some of the other databases like Biosis and some other things that I don't remember because I don't ever use that site. So all right, so I'm going to go in. I want to find things by topic, and I want to find things about, and I want to find things about innovation. And oh my, I've got 334,000 items, which is way more than I ever wanted. So again, just like we had with Quick Search, where you're able to refine the results, one of the things that I can do here on the left-hand side, as opposed to the right-hand side, is like connect to the last 3 years. And now I only have 81,000, which is, hey, that's great. One of the things that is going to be really useful for you as graduate students is looking at review articles. And tell you what a review article is. A review article isn't like, don't think of it as a book review, where someone's reviewing a book. A review article is an article that takes a topic and basically provides you with the state-of-the-art information about that topic. So, and that's really useful if you're new to a subject area or you're trying to get in-depth information about a subject area. One of the things that you can do with review articles is you can find a review article that's on your topic and then say, all right, this is great. I can go in here and find out, what is the most recent research in the field. And the way to do that with Web of Science is they have under document types a review article category. So now we've got 6,000 titles, and as it turns out, hey, I'm in management. I'm in the PhD program in management, and I only want the review articles in management about innovation. So I refine again, and now I've got 408 titles as opposed to 300 and some thousand. One of the ways that you can tell that something is a review article, this is sort of just the way that I have explained it to grad students is one of the ways you can tell something is a review article. Web of Science tells you how many references there are. And generally, if there are over 100 references, yeah, it's probably a review article, even if it doesn't say you haven't gone through and checked. So, but now I'm going to turn things over to Heather, and she's going to take us through the rest of our afternoon project, or the rest of our afternoons.
Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen here, if I can share the correct one. Perfect. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some other resources that do tracking citations as well. So Web of Science is, I tend to look at these three resources as kind of similar. So Web of Science is one, and then Scopus is another, and then Google Scholar. They all have very similar functions in that They're broadly interdisciplinary. They cover all of the subjects out there, but they do it in very different ways. So Web of Science is probably the narrowest of the three. It covers the least amount of journals, but it covers them really in depth. They go really far back in history. So if a journal is included, it generally goes back all the way as far back as the journal has been around. Scopus is a little bit bigger than Web of Science. It covers more journals, but it doesn't go as far back in time generally. Not all of the journals are covered all the way back to the first article or first issue that was included for that journal. So Web of Science is narrow but really deep. Scopus is a little bit broader but not as deep. And then Google Scholar is anything that Google can crawl and get its hands on. The first two are curated, meaning somebody has chosen those articles to be there, and Google Scholar is just basically whatever they can get their hands on. So those are how I view them. I'm going to go show you Scopus because I use Scopus mostly in my areas. I'm a science librarian, and it covers a lot of really good interdisciplinary areas. And since science is not super interested in what happened 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, it's really good for my particular areas. So if you go to Scopus, it looks very similar to every other database that's out there. I'm going to do build a search. I used some Boolean terms, some quotation marks to keep a phrase together, and a truncation mark to help find alternate endings to a word. And when I search, it gives me a list of documents. And so similar in look to the other Web of Science results, you have your limiters on this side. You have your cited by over here on this side. So the key part to, I think, to these three resources, Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar, is that they're great for finding articles, but their key aspect to me is not locating a particular article, even though it's a good function of it, but it rather is finding where it fits in history within the field. So a lot of times you're looking for the most up-to-date reference on something, or I want to know who cited what. Is there a hole that I can find that I can do research in that nobody else has done? And that's kind of where you're looking for. So for this particular article, the first one, it's pretty old, but it's been cited by 257 other articles, meaning this article is found in the references of over 250 other articles. And if I wanted to look and see what other research has been done since this article, I can click on this number over here and just go to that list of articles. So if I was looking for this, I can go to this article, take a look at it, and go, yes, I want this. But I also have this list of other references that have been cited, have furthered this work. It also has related articles. They're not necessarily in the citations or have cited this, but they have similar subject headings. So when you're doing research, you're going to look at this information about the article when you're in the index, read the abstract. That tells you whether or not this is an article that, one, you understand and is close to the subject that you want, but also there are keywords, and these are really important for finding terminology that fits with your research. So these are the ways. Think hashtags for social media, but for in-depth research. So if a topic is mentioned, it's going to always be mentioned the same way. You can't make up your own hashtags essentially in these databases. if it talks about dietary fiber, it's always going to be listed in that particular fashion. And so you can search using those terminologies. I find it really useful once you find an article that's close to the subject you want to look at those headings, because then you get the terminology that's being used in the field. So that's really important. So this is great. From here, you can either view it at the publisher or use there's a link in most of the databases that says get it at ISU. Highly recommend, because this will either link you all the way through to the full text of it, or it will give you that form for interlibrary, the option to fill out a form for interlibrary loan. So that's really useful. I personally don't like having to go hunt down and see if we own the article. This will just take you directly to the full text if we have it. So it saves you a little bit of time and a little bit of effort. So that's what Scopus does. It is useful in that way. So from here, you can view the PDF. You can look at the article a little bit more in depth. And if you're using a bib management system, which I'll talk about briefly, you can shift it into your bibliographic management system as well from this point. So let's go back to results here. The other option is Google Scholar. You can link to Google Scholar through our article indexes and databases page. I recommend doing that at first, because it lets Google Scholar know that you're coming from ISU, which is really nice, because then you can have access to the resources that the library has paid for, which is always lovely. When you do a search, you have an option of doing an advanced search for Google Scholar. It gives you an option here of how to build a search, or if you know how to do Boolean, you can do those types of searches up in your search bar and then search, and you've got your view at ISU. Sometimes the full text is just available from the publisher, sometimes ResearchGate, but not always. And then again, here's the cited by, which is that taking the next step forward from this article, who else has cited it? So these are this article, this top one, has been cited by 113 other articles. So it's not the newest research on this topic, but it's a good jumping off point for other articles. Okay. So those three databases are really good, broad general ones for graduate students. We have other broad general databases, such as like Academic Search Ultimate, but that is more of a undergraduate level, unless you're looking for popular information. Scopus, Web of Science, Google Scholar are your better options. If you're looking particularly for a subject, as we said, you can check this particular, the subjects, or by type of information that you're looking for. We have full text government information. If you're looking just for images or for patents, you can look for a database that covers that type of information specifically. But I think a better way of approaching things, if you're looking for subject information, is actually to use one of the library guides. So I'm going to go back to the library homepage and show you how to get to a guide that will help you locate resources on your topic. So from this middle section of the library homepage, there's this button over here that says Research and Course Guides. You're going to click on it. And it's got a few pictures of our lovely librarians on the side. And in the middle, there are all of these subject headings. So it should be covered under one of these areas. These do not correspond to departments. So like under biological sciences, it's not just bio, it's like anything that would be considered a bioscience. So biochemistry and ecology and genetics. So think broadly rather than like, I didn't find my department name on this list. It's not really by department, it's by broad areas. So these each of these guides is by a subject area. And when you click on it, your librarian for that subject should be over here. I clicked on this one because this is my area. You can email the person, you can schedule an appointment, you can have contact information, and these will, each of them is set up slightly differently depending on how the librarian has set it up, but it covers the basic resources for this subject to get you started, where they recommend starting, what resources are available, anything that they want you to know for your particular type of research. It should be in your guide. And this is, I think, the best place to go if you're looking and haven't really done a lot of research in your area before. This will get you a list of like, these are the resources for this particular area that you want to check out and start with. So I recommend doing that before pretty much anything else as far as subject guides go. So figure out who your librarian is, figure out what your guide is, and look through those resources and become comfortable with them. The other thing that I really recommend is looking at by groups. So you can look at subject guides by subject, but by group is really great for graduate students because some of the guides don't fit within a particular subject. They're really broad. So like how to set up an alert. A lot of the searches that you do on databases or in a particular journal, you don't want to have to do that search over and over and over again. Once you've got a really great search, you want to be able to save it and just have it tell you what the results are later. So you can set up an alert, and this guide will walk you through how to do that. If you want to know how to conduct a literature review, there's a guide on how to conduct a literature review. If you want to have a bibliographic management system, there are guides to each of the bibliographic management systems. So I'm going to tell you briefly what bibliographic management systems are, because I think they are absolutely fundamental in being able to survive graduate school. So we have 3 that the library supports: EndNote, /EndNote Web, Zotero, and Mendeley. And those are your 3 that we in the library support. There are others that are available, but those 3 are really the 3 that we support and we can help you with. Think of a giant database where you can put all of your citation information. It connects with our databases, and there's browser plugins, and there's a plugin for Word. So I personally use Mendeley. There are some differences between these 3 products: EndNote and EndNote Web. EndNote Web is free. It is connected to your accounts here at the university. If you pay for the full version, you can take it with you once you leave. If you just use the free version, it stays here and you can't take it with you. Mendeley is free. It can be taken with you. It is your own. So once you graduate, you can take your library with you. Zotero is the same. It's free, and you can take it with you once you leave. Zotero is open source, meaning it's not really connected to anybody. So it's got a few little quirks to it. But for the most part, it is the one that's least connected to anything else. So you're going to have to use a few more workarounds sometimes to get things to work. Mendeley, I personally use Mendeley, but I always give a caveat of it's owned by the company I hate the most in the universe. And whatever you put in there will be data mined. So if you want your privacy, I don't recommend Mendeley. I would recommend one of the other 2. So just where I stand on things. If you can see my screen up here on the side, I have a little Mendeley web importer. So when I'm going through my various databases, I can import things directly from my database. So I can import them into my library directly from here. So when I click on it, I add a reference to a database and I just click add. So articles go directly into my library. My library looks something like this. And it's just a database full of articles that I think are interesting. I can put it into collections. So if I have different projects, I can have records that are associated with different projects. And the great thing about all of this is that it connects to Word or Google Docs or something like that. And then when I want to put citations in, I go to the References tab, I find a place that I want to put a citation, I click what citation I want to add, and I insert the citation. And then when I'm done with everything, at the end of my paper, I can just add a bibliography. And it does it automatically. And if I want to change citation styles, I can do that on the fly, and it will update the citation style to whichever style it needs to be published in, which will save you hundreds of hours over your lifetime of keeping track of your PDFs and keeping track of the citations and keeping track of the citation style. I totally recommend doing something like this because it will save oodles of time. So if you get nothing else, please at least start one of these. And then the other thing we mentioned was browsing. Browsing is an option. It is an app that you can use. It's also a website. You can create your own library of articles and journals that you go to. You can create bookshelves, and you can read through tables of contents and then try and get the full article, and it will link you back through. Once you choose your university, you can request items that we don't have access to through interlibrary loan. And as Jeff said, it fills in all the information. So if you're in an area where you have a journal that we don't have access to, but you want to look at the table of contents regularly, you can put it in a browsing bookshelf, read the table of contents, select which articles you want, and have them fill out this information automatically, which is absolutely fantastic. And there is information on browsing in a number of places throughout the library website. Okay. The other thing I had mentioned was alerts. From any of these databases, I'm currently in Mendeley, I'm in Scopus, you can set up an alert so that you don't have to redo a search. So if I created a really in-depth search strategy with lots of complex things, and it was in the area that I'm going to be studying in for a long time, I don't want to have to redo that search every single time I want to know if something else on my subject has come up. I can set an alert, which is super fast, and it lets me choose how often, on what day, where it's going to go to, which email addresses, what the name of the alert is, and all of that information. And then I can set my alert, and then it just emails me every week if there are any new articles that fit my search criteria. And I recommend not working harder at finding information, but working more efficiently at finding it. So I'm gonna open it up, I think, for questions. I'm gonna stop sharing and open it up for I'm going to throw it over to Jeff really quickly so that he can talk about some answers to common questions that we get, and then we'll open it up for questions if anybody has any. I'm going to hop off. I have to go to a different.
Yep, Heather is double booked. Actually, she has a class presentation to go and do across campus in about 10 minutes, so she's going to have to go run fast. But I'll be here to answer questions. Actually, one of the questions that I get really often from graduate students as they're working on a lit review is, how do I know when I found enough information? You know, I keep searching. I've been looking for things. How do I know when I found enough? And the sort of easy answer to that question is you found enough material when you keep seeing the same articles over and over again. So because at some point you're gonna go to Scopus and you're gonna look for your articles, and you're gonna have gone and found the review articles, and then you're gonna go and track the articles in there, and then you're gonna take that review article and look forward and see who cited it. At some point, you're gonna start to collect sort of critical mass of literature, and one of the things that you will find is that eventually, at some point, you're going to start getting the same. You're going to start seeing the same names over and over again, and you're going to start seeing the same articles over and over. So that's one way to tell when you found enough information. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, because I wanted to show you. If you go to searching course guides and you type in literature, is a guide. All of you as graduate students at some point are going to have to. Oops, it wasn't sharing. There we go. Now we're sharing it. The way that I got here was I went to the research and course guides, and I type literature review in the search bar. Search. All of you as graduate students are going to need to. All of you as graduate students at some point are going to need to do a literature review, whether it is for a seminar that you're working on or as you're working on your thesis. One of the resources that is not the library that I really want to promote is the Center for Communication Excellence, which is part of the graduate school. They are your experts at thesis preparation and writing help and speaking help and presentation things, and they have a fantastic staff. One of the things, this guide that I'm showing, the How to Conduct a Literature Review, was based on, or was developed as part of a seminar series that we did in conjunction with the CCE about how to conduct a literature review. It was done in two pieces, actually. One was how to conduct a literature review, like how do I get started. The second one was how to write your literature review. So this how to conduct a literature review piece actually has lots of good information about how do I develop a search strategy, what literature do I search, how do I find stuff, how do I keep up with literature, when do I know if I found enough, how do I know that I found enough information? So, stop sharing now. The other question that we get from people is sometimes you will go and you'll start working on your search, and especially as Heather was talking about, when you start working on your search, you don't necessarily know what the terms are. So going and finding an article that's on point for your topic and looking at the subject headings is going to be a really great way to kind of help you narrow your topic and start becoming an expert in, okay, what are the actual terms that define the field or the area that I'm studying. One of the other questions that we get from people is, not as often as the how do I know when I found enough information, because that's pretty common. The other question that we get from people is, I've been searching for information on my topic and I'm not finding anything at all. What do I do? The answer to that question is there are two possible answers to that question. One is that you're doing something so novel that no one's ever done it before. And that can happen, especially if you're working in like a cutting edge area, let's say material science. It doesn't happen, right? You're looking at a compound that no one's ever looked at. And you're not going to find, you don't think you're going to find information. So that's one option, is that you have to be working in an area where there really isn't a lot of literature available. The second possibility is that the databases that you're looking in aren't ones that cover the topic or the subject area you're looking for. The other piece is sometimes what we find is that the search strategy that you're using is, for example, excluding the actual real topic that you're trying to find. And our advice there, if you're not having luck finding you're not having a lot of finding literature on topic, your best bet is to get in touch with the librarian in your subject area, in your field, and say, hey, I've been searching for this stuff and I'm not finding anything. Can you help me figure out why? And we'll sit down with you, and we're glad to set up appointments to sit down and talk with you about your research strategy and the databases you're looking for and the kinds of literature that you should be trying to find. And we can help diagnose why it is that you are or aren't finding literature on a particular topic and get you pointed in the right direction. So those were the two common questions. I guess if there are other questions at this point, I'd be glad to answer them. And otherwise, we'll pass it over to Sarah to finish up.
I don't have too much, but I really appreciate both of you doing this for the students who are here. And yeah, if anyone has questions, I think you can also raise your hand and then I can unmute people.
And Sarah, we are recording this. And I'm not sure where the recording is going to go, but you'll have access to it so you can post it.
Yeah.
For other folks later on.
Yeah, so I have all the recordings and we'll add these to the graduate college website.
Okay. All right, well, if there aren't questions, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who attended this afternoon. We hope that you found this useful. Again, come and get to know us at the library. We will find you anything you need when you need it. Actually, the other piece that I didn't mention earlier in terms of how do I get access? Where can I have access to the materials from the library? Most of our databases are available remotely. So as long as you're logged in with Okta, you have access to them. And that means that you have access to our materials regardless wherever you are, whenever you need it. So if you are here in Ames or you're out of town for the weekend in Chicago or you're doing field research in Ecuador, as long as you've got internet access and your net ID, you have access to our databases. And you also have access to interlibrary loans. We will send articles to you, whether you're here or in Italy. I don't know that we do the book loans internationally, but we'll certainly do book loans. We'll send book material to you. Send book material to you throughout the U.S. The last piece related to book loans, the loans for our materials. Graduate students have a 1-year loan with a fixed due date that ends in May. So basically, right now, anything that you check out from the library, any physical items that you check out from the library will be due in May of next year. And you'll get a renewal notice sometime in April saying you want to renew these, you can go into your account and actually auto-renew them. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found it useful. And as I mentioned, please get in touch with myself or your librarian if you have a need during the time your grad students. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Jeff, and thanks everyone for attending.